Germany, the second largest nation in Europe by population and home to top automobile and high-end manufacturing companies. Germany has a highly developed social market economy. It is the largest in Europe and fourth largest in the world with a GDP size of $3.4 trillion. In 2017, the country accounted for 28% of the euro area economy according to the IMF. Germany is also the founding member of the European Union and the Eurozone. In 2016, Germany recorded the highest trade surplus in the world worth $310 billion, making it the biggest capital exporter worldwide. Germany is one of the largest exporters globally, with $1.4 trillion worth of goods and services exported in 2017. Exports account for 41% of national output. Some of the top exports of Germany are vehicles, machinery, chemical goods, electronic products, and electrical equipment. Germany is also the world's top location for trade fairs. Around two-thirds of the world's leading trade fairs take place in Germany. The largest annual international trade fairs and congresses are held in several German cities such as Hanover, Frankfurt, Cologne, and Düsseldorf. The Industrial Revolution in Germany started almost a century later than in the United Kingdom, France, and Belgium, partly because Germany only became a unified country in 1871. The establishment of the German Customs Union in 1834 and the expansion of railway systems were the main drivers of Germany's industrial development and political union. From 1834, tariff barriers between increasing number of the German states were eliminated. In 1835, the first German railway was started, linking the Franconian cities of Nuremberg and Fürth, and it proved so successful that the decade of 1840s saw railway boom in all the German states. Between 1845 and 1870, 8,000 kilometers of rail had been built, and by 1850 Germany was building its own locomotives. Over time, other German states joined the customs union and started linking the railroads, which began to connect the corners of Germany together. The growth of free trade and of a rail system across Germany intensified its economic development. Between 1881 and 1889, Chancellor Otto von Bismarck promoted laws that provided social insurance and improved working conditions. He instituted the world's first welfare state. Germany was first to introduce social insurance program including universal health care, compulsory education, sickness insurance, accident insurance, disability insurance, and a retirement pension. Moreover, the government's universal education policy bore fruit, with Germany achieving the highest literacy rate in the world at 99%. By 1900, Germany surpassed Britain and the United States in steel production. German economic miracle was also intensified by an unprecedented population growth from 35 million in 1850 to 67 million in 1913. From 1895 to 1907, the number of workers engaged in machine building doubled from 500,000 to well over 1 million. Only 40% of Germans lived in rural areas by 1910, a drop from 67% at the birth of the empire. Industry accounted for 60% of the gross national product in 1913. The German chemical industry became the most advanced in the world, and by 1914, the country was producing half the world's electrical equipment. The rapid advance to industrial maturity led to a drastic shift in Germany's economic situation, from a rural economy into a major exporter of finished goods. By 1914, Germany had become one of the biggest exporters in the world. The Nazis rose to power while unemployment was very high, but achieved full employment later thanks to massive public works programs such as Reichsbahn, Reichspost, and the Reichsautobahn projects. In 1935, rearmament in contravention of the Treaty of Versailles added to the economy. The post-1931 financial crisis economic policies of expansionary fiscal policies was advised by the known Nazi Minister of Economics, Hjalmar Schacht, who in 1933 became the president of the central bank. The trading policies of the Third Reich aimed at self-sufficiency, but with a lack of raw materials, Germany would have to maintain trade links, but on bilateral preferences, foreign exchange controls, import quotas, and export subsidies under what was called the New Plan of 19 September 1934. The new plan was based on trade with less developed countries who would trade raw materials for German industrial goods, saving currency. Southern Europe was preferable to Western Europe and North America as there could be no trade blockades. This policy became known as the Greater Economic Area Policy. Eventually, the Nazi Party developed strong relationship with big business and abolished trade unions in 1933 in order to form the National Labor Service, German Labor Front to set working hours, Beauty of Labor which set working conditions, and Strength Through Joy to ensure sports club for workers. Beginning with the replacement of the Reichsmark with the Deutsche Mark as legal tender, a lasting period of low inflation and rapid industrial growth was overseen by the government led by German Chancellor Konrad Adenauer and his Minister of Economics Ludwig Erhard, raising West Germany from total wartime devastation to one of the most developed nations in modern Europe. Hard work and long working hours at full capacity among the population in 1950s, 60s, and early 70s, and extra labor supplied by thousands of guest workers provided a vital base for the economic upturn. By the early 1950s, the Soviet Union had seized reparation in the form of agricultural and industrial products and demanded further heavy reparation payments. Silesia, with the Upper Silesian Coal Basin, and Stettin, a prominent natural port, were lost to Poland. Exports from West Germany exceeded $323 billion in 1988. In the same year, East Germany exported $30.7 billion worth of goods, out of which 65% were to other communist states. The German economy practically stagnated in the beginning of 2000s. The worst growth figures were achieved in 2002, 2003 and in 2005. And unemployment was also chronically high. Due to these problems, together with Germany's aging population, the welfare system came under considerable strain. This led the government to push through a wide-ranging program of belt-tightening reforms, Agenda 2010, including the labor market reforms known as Hartz 1 to 5. In the later part of the first decade of 2000, the world economy experienced high growth, from which Germany as a leading exporter also profited. The nominal GDP of Germany contracted in the second and third quarters of 2008, putting the country in a technical recession following a global and European recession cycle. In January 2009, the German government under Angela Merkel approved a €50 billion economic stimulus plan to protect several sectors from a downturn and a subsequent rise in unemployment rates. Germany exited the recession in the second and third quarters of 2009, mostly due to rebounding manufacturing orders and exports. Germany is a founding member of the EU, the G8 and the G20, and was the world's largest exporter from 2003 to 2008. In 2011, it remained the third largest exporter and third largest importer. Most of the country's exports are in engineering, especially machinery, automobiles, chemical goods, and metals. Germany is a leading producer of wind turbines and solar power technology. The number of people in work has risen to 41.6 million, the highest recorded figure. Germany has a social market economy characterized by a highly qualified labor force, a developed infrastructure, a large capital stock, a low level of corruption, and a high level of innovation. The service sector contributes around 70% of total GDP. Industry contributes 29.1% and agriculture 0.9%. In 2010, agriculture, forestry, and mining accounted for only 0.9% of Germany's GDP and employed only 2.4% of the population, down from 4% in 1991. Agriculture is extremely productive, and Germany is able to cover 90% of its nutritional needs with domestic production. Industry and construction accounted for 30.7% of gross domestic product in 2017 and employed 24.2% of the workforce. Germany excels in the production of automobiles, machinery, electrical equipment, and chemicals. With the manufacturing of 5.2 million vehicles in 2009, Germany was the world's fourth largest producer and largest exporter of automobiles. German automotive companies enjoy an extremely strong position in the premium segment with a combined world market share of about 90%. In 2017, services constituted 68.6% of GDP, and the sector employed 74.3% of the workforce. The subcomponents of services, which are financial, renting, and business activities, contributed 30.5% of GDP. Trade, hotels and restaurants, and transport contributed 18%, and other service activities were 21.7% of GDP. Despite economic prosperity, Germany's biggest threat for future economic development is the nation's declining birth rate, which is among the lowest in the world. This is particularly prevalent in parts of society with high education. As a result, the number of workers is expected to decrease, and the government spending needed to support pensioners and healthcare will increase if the trend is not reversed. Germany remains among the world's top manufacturing countries with a highly skilled workforce. Even with recent economic downturn caused by the pandemic, it is based better than any other European economy. It's a high-quality exports-based economy and will exit the recession faster than any other economy. But challenges remain in the long run, which need to be tackled with right economic and social policies.